Imagine leaving your house and automatically receiving a list of instructions. Don't wear that. Don't walk there. Don't make eye contact. Don't be too loud. Don't come home late. Well, what if I told you that this is the daily reality for billions of women worldwide? From the very moment we begin to understand the world around us, we are taught to fear it. We are taught that our safety is our responsibility, that fear is our burden, and that caution is our armor. And yet, no one ever stops to ask, well, why is women's safety seen as a personal problem rather than a collective societal failure? Today, I want to challenge this belief, this idea that being a woman comes with a built-in warning label, that fear is part of a job description, that respect is something to be earned through the right behavior and not something that is inherently deserved. Because what if women's safety wasn't conditional? What if respect was the default rather than a reward? What if we stopped teaching girls how to shrink and instead built a society around them where they wouldn't have to? The numbers behind this aren't abstract. According to the World Health Organization and UN Women, 840 million women globally, so essentially 1 in 3 women worldwide, become victims of physical or sexual violence during their lifetime. To narrow it further, the EU Agency for Fundamental Rights found that 33% of women in Europe become victims of sexual violence by the age of 15. And to place it even closer to us, in Germany, the Federal Criminal Police Office recorded over 265,492 cases of domestic violence in just a single year last year, with over 70% of the victims being female. These aren't just mere statistics. They're a sign of global emergency. Now, you may be thinking, well, this isn't going to happen to me or anyone I know, because we live in a safe and civilized society, right? Well, what if I told you you're completely wrong? You see, in surveys like the EU Fundamental Rights Agency's EU-wide surveys, news, and even social media worldwide, women share stories of how they are dehumanized daily. One particular story I came across was from a student who lived in Berlin in her late 20s who was taking the U-Bahn from her evening shift. 2 men sat beside her, began laughing at her and ridiculing her, and then when she moved due to feeling uncomfortable, proceeded to follow her. She then confronted them about it loudly in German, but to her shock, the 2 men kept going, ultimately forcing her to endure this until she got off at her stop. This was not a dramatic crime scene. It was an ordinary day. And this isn't the only case. It's one of many. Thousands of girls from Hamburg to Sydney to Delhi have shared similar testimonies. They don't wear headphones at night so they can hear approaching footsteps, and they map the routes back home based on streetlights for safety, regardless of whether that is the fastest way. These stories show 2 main things. Firstly, that this could literally happen to anyone. And secondly, that women aren't preparing for major catastrophes, but are rather managing everyday intimidation, which rarely ever reaches courtrooms, but can shape their entire lives. This fear isn't destiny. It is shaped by our policies, education, enforcement, and even our cultural norms. And the evidence proves that when those structures change, women's lives change with them. Take education. UNESCO's Global Research Program on Comprehensive Sexuality and Consent Education shows that countries that introduce age-appropriate lessons on respect, boundaries, and equality currently experience positive effects such as increased knowledge and healthier attitudes towards relationships and sexual behaviors. In the Netherlands, for instance, where such conversations begin as early as primary school, UNESCO reports that they contribute to a respectful society and a safe and happy living environment. This isn't just luck, it's effective learning. Now, look at enforcement. Spain, after facing years of public pressure, created specialized gender violence courts, rapid protection orders, and even electronically monitored offenders. The United Nations Development Program reports that such reforms are typically followed by faster convictions, with a conviction rate of gender-based violence perpetrators doubling in 12 countries and counting, Spain included. So, as you can see, when the system begins to take women seriously, society as a whole follows. Even the designs of our streets matters. Vienna rebuilt entire districts using gender-sensitive planning, implementing better street lights, open sightlines, bus stops closer to homes, and much more. The result? Public surveys showed that women's use of these spaces even at night rose, and they felt a lot safer. We're talking a city actually took the initiative to do something about this. These examples show us that this fear is a man-made climate, and that climate can be rebuilt. However, such reforms can take years or even decades to happen, all while girls continue to bear the consequences. The Berlin student I mentioned earlier ended her story in a haunting sentence. I found it shocking that being dressed more freely seemed to be understood by these men as a reason to treat me like a piece of meat. She blamed herself for the way that she was treated just because she was wearing a tank top and shorts, rather than focusing on the fact that no matter what somebody wears, they shouldn't be objectified like that. And that is exactly what fear does. It turns victims into suspects. It makes women question themselves instead of the society around them, which normalizes this behavior. As a result, girls begin to shrink. Not physically, but socially. They speak softer, take up less space, choose the safer career path where they won't be challenged by the patriarchal system that runs our world. And we are so blind that we applaud this restraint as maturity instead of recognizing it as an adaptation to injustice. Hence, this isn't just a women's issue. It's an economic issue, a political issue, a human issue. The UNODC confirms that gender-based insecurity reduces women's participation in the workforce, leadership, and public life, costing societies billions through lost talent and restricted mobility. And men suffer from this too. Rigid gender expectation will reward dominance over empathy and silence over accountability, trapping boys in roles just as narrow as those imposed upon girls. My point is that equality is not just a favor to women. It is basic social infrastructure. So we must move safety from a personal burden to a public duty. That means teaching consent as seriously as we teach any other subject in schools like mathematics, as UNESCO recommends, building justice systems that respond quickly and take what victims say seriously, like Spain's model, designing cities that protect people instead of testing them, like Vienna has done, and continuing to take people's everyday experiences into serious consideration, like the EU Fundamental Rights Agency did. These are not utopian fantasies. They are policies and actions already working somewhere in the world today. Just imagine what we could achieve. Imagine the Berlin student taking the U-Bahn home without rehearsing escape plans. Imagine a teenage girl in Hamburg wearing headphones at night listening to music and not footsteps. Imagine a world where being a woman would not require a strategy. A world where that invisible label is not handled with caution, but handled with respect. Change does not begin with grand speeches or promises. It begins with ordinary courage from all of us. So, this is what I challenge you to do. Interrupt the joke that reduces a woman to an object. Question the comment that blames a girl for the harm done to her. Advocate for schools to start teaching consent instead of staying silent. Vote for policies that actually help protect, not just perform. And finally, start believing everyday stories as seriously as you believe front-page crimes. Because culture and norms change in classrooms, buses, and locker rooms long before they change in parliaments or on paper. The world keeps telling women, be smaller, be quieter, be careful. But the problem was never actually the size of the woman. The problem was the size of our tolerance for disrespect. So the next time someone tells you, well, that's just how some things are, ask them, says who?